Here's the script, rewritten in simple English for 10th grade students. Benny Andersson wrote ABBA's biggest hits while secretly fighting something much darker. For 20 years, he stayed quiet about it. Then in 2011, when he was 64 years old, he finally told the truth. He couldn't work without alcohol during ABBA's best years. Every hit song, every world tour, every Grammy, he was drunk through all of it. But that wasn't even the hardest thing he had to admit. He also told everyone why songs like The Winner Takes It All were so painful. They weren't just about broken hearts. They were his way of avoiding real talks with people. Benny Andersson was born on December 16, 1946, in a part of Stockholm called Västerås. But this wasn't just any ordinary birth. He was born into a family where music filled every room like the air they breathed. His father Gösta had a job as a civil engineer, but deep down, he was a musician who loved playing the accordion. Even more important was Benny's grandfather, Ephraim, who played Swedish folk songs on his accordion at family parties. At home, music wasn't just background noise. It was the main thing everyone cared about. Benny grew up hearing songs that had been passed down through many generations. That deep love for Swedish folk music would later show up in worldwide pop hits, though no one knew it yet, not even Benny himself. Everything changed when Benny turned 6 years old. That's when he got his first accordion. For most kids, it might have ended up forgotten in a corner after a few days, but not Benny. He was completely obsessed with it. He joined his father and grandfather playing folk songs night after night. It wasn't just for fun. It was like training. He learned how music tells a story and how melodies can speak without any words. Waltzes, kodishes, and polskas became part of his musical DNA. Years later, those same rhythms would be heard in ABBA songs that filled huge arenas. But back then, he was just a boy learning how to make music with the people he loved most. By the time he was 10 years old, Benny was ready to try something beyond the accordion. He discovered the piano, and it felt like coming home. There were no teachers, no lessons, just him, the piano keys, and hours of trying things out. He played by listening, figuring out notes from the radio, then changing them into his own versions. He didn't follow rules, he made up his own. Day after day, he sat at the piano for hours. Slowly, he built a style that mixed pop music with folk music, structure with soul. It didn't take long before he could switch between different musical styles like it was nothing. That mixing would become one of ABBA's secret weapons. Songs like Dancing Queen got their special sound from those lonely hours. Benny spent figuring things out by himself when he was 15. While most kids were still trying to pass math tests, Benny quit school. It was 1961, and he had made up his mind. Music wasn't just a dream anymore. It was the only path he wanted to take. He started performing at youth clubs around Stockholm, especially in the suburbs. He wasn't famous yet, but people noticed him. The way he played, the way he kept a crowd interested, it was clear he wasn't just another teenager with a guitar. He got a good reputation quickly. And soon, his name was being talked about among local bands and music producers. It was risky. Sweden back then didn't approve of kids who dropped out of school. But Benny wasn't interested in playing it safe. He was chasing something bigger, and it was working. Around the same time, Benny also experienced something that would shape him just as much as music did: young love and becoming a father. He met Christina Grunwald, who was also a musician. They connected quickly, and by the time Benny was 17, they had a son named Peter. 2 years later, their daughter Helen was born. Benny was still just a teenager. Most kids his age were barely figuring out what they wanted to do with their lives. And here he was trying to balance taking care of babies and going to band rehearsals. It wasn't easy. He had gigs to play, dreams to chase, and now a family that depended on him. But those years taught him something no stage ever could: what it really meant to be responsible for other people. And those emotions, the struggle, the love, the guilt, would one day end up in song lyrics that made millions of people cry. Benny Andersson was just 17 when everything in his life changed completely. It was October 1964. He wasn't a star yet. He was still working as a bank clerk during the day, but at night he played music. That's when he caught the attention of Sven Hedlund, the lead singer of a band called the Hepstars. During a casual jam session, Benny's skill on the organ completely amazed him. Benny was officially a member of the Hepstars. The band already had some success, but Benny added something extra special. His classical training mixed with raw instinct gave the group a completely new sound. He brought complexity to their music without losing the beat that made people dance. Within months, the band took off, and Benny was right at the center of it all. Their real breakthrough came in March 1965. That's when they performed a song called Cadillac on national television. The TV show was called Drop In, and over 1 million Swedish people watched it. That was huge numbers for a country of just 7.7 million people. The energy, the confidence, and especially Benny's electric organ playing left viewers completely stunned. Suddenly, the band was everywhere. People started calling them the Swedish Beatles. Benny, who used to be the quiet teenager, was now a teen idol. Girls screamed his name wherever he went. Photographers followed him around. Cadillac sold more than 80,000 copies, which was a huge number back then, especially in a music market controlled by British and American bands. But Benny didn't just want to perform other people's songs, he wanted to create his own. Later that same year, he wrote his first original song called No Response. It didn't become a big hit, but it was a start. Then, in 1966, he wrote Sunny Girl. That song changed everything for him. It wasn't just a hit, it was a breakthrough moment. The song had a delicate sadness to it, something that felt uniquely Swedish. It hit #1 on the charts and stayed there for weeks. Benny had no formal education in songwriting. He did everything by listening and feeling. Yet, Sunny Girl sold more than 50,000 copies and got covered by bands across Europe. Swedish pop music, which had long been seen as second-rate, suddenly had global potential, and Benny was leading the way. Between 1964 and 1969, the Hepstars dominated Swedish pop music, and Benny wrote many of their biggest hits. Songs like Wedding, Consolation, She Will Love You, and It's Nice to Be Back didn't just sell well, they became part of Swedish culture. Wedding, which came out in 1966, stood out because of its rich musical arrangement and deep emotion. Consolation and She Will Love You were both top 5 hits. It's Nice to Be Back was a favorite at live shows. While most Swedish bands just copied British or American styles, Benny created something completely original. By 1967, the Hepstars had sold over 400,000 records in Sweden. That was almost unheard of back then, and Benny's songwriting was at the heart of it all. On June 5, 1966, Benny Andersson was on tour with his band, the Hepstars. At the same time, Bjorn, who was also 18, was touring with a group called the Hootenanny Singers. That afternoon, their paths crossed in a park called Slottsparken in Lincoln. They sat on a bench with guitars in their hands and began playing Beatles songs together. What started as a simple jam session would end up changing pop music forever. That moment started a creative partnership that would lead to ABBA, over 400 million records sold, and one of the most successful songwriting teams in history. That park bench still exists today, and now it plays ABBA songs when you sit on it. As Bjorn once said, "My life would have been completely different if we had not met there." Soon after that meeting, the two guys started writing songs together. Their first collaboration was a track called Isn't It Easy to Say It Wasn't a Global Hit? But it meant everything to them. It was recorded by the Hepstars and appeared on an album that reached #12 on the Swedish charts. That song proved they had something special together. They didn't stop there. By the end of the 1960s, they were writing songs for other artists, getting better at their craft, and building the sound that would one day take over the world. But they weren't just thinking about music. They were thinking about business too. Together with Stig Andersson, who would later become ABBA's manager, they started Union Songs, a publishing company that gave them complete control of their music rights. That move was rare for musicians at the time. It meant that when the big money started coming in, they didn't have to share it with outside companies. They owned their songs completely. That decision would make them millions of dollars in the decades that followed and protect their legacy. Then came 1969. Benny had entered the Melodifestival contest with a song called H.E.J. Gamelman. It came in second place after a tense vote. But something more important happened that night. Backstage, Benny met a young singer named Annie Frid Lyngstedt. Within weeks, they were dating. Their romance quickly turned into a musical partnership. She wasn't just his girlfriend. She would become one of ABBA's voices. That meeting helped complete the group that would change everything. In 1970, Benny and Bjorn released an album called Lika, On one of the tracks, H.E.J. Gamelman, they brought in their girlfriends, Anna Frid and Agnetha Foltskog, to sing backup vocals. That track,